Hi, and welcome to lesson number 16 of the Fundamentals of Slovenian Grammar course. So last time we had a look at how to conjugate verbs in Slovenian, and we said that to conjugate verbs is a fancy way of saying to go like I work, you work, he, she works, to go through all of the verb forms like that in Slovenian. And last time we learned how to conjugate regular verbs, that is, a verb where nothing unpredictable happens, and today we'll have a look at irregular verbs. So verbs where something unusual kind of happens that we have to learn by heart. Now before we get into irregular verbs today, let's review everything we've covered last time. So we have our two worlds, and the world of nouns and verbs and all of the properties and word types and their properties. So we're just very familiar with all of this by now. And this is the part of the diagram we will be focusing on in the next few lessons. So the interaction of number and person in Slovenian, and we have the first, second, and third person singular and the first, second, and third person dual and plural. And that is what we're learning about right now, how to do exactly that in Slovenian, that is, of course. So we have delati, and if we conjugate delati, it's delam, delaš, dela, delava, delata, delata, delamo, delate, and delajo. Then we explained in the previous lesson that the pronouns are less important than the verbs. The verbs are our current focus, and that's what you should sort of really actively try learning. We will cover the pronouns in more detail in future lessons, and we will focus on them when the time is right, but now the verbs are more important. And we said the reason they're more important is because the verb forms are unique in Slovenian. They kind of have a unique signature. And so we don't have to say jaz delam, because delam can only be jaz. Delaš can only be ti. Delamo can only be we, plural. Now it's true it can be me or me, but that difference is not as important or as big as it might seem right now. The important part is delamo can only be we work. Delate can only be you all work. So the pronouns are definitely less important. And two of the verb forms are not unique, but they share an ending, and that's you two and the two of you and the two of them. And we said that this can make us slightly more likely to use pronouns with you two or with they two, but even then, usually the context provides enough information so that we know exactly whether a ta is a you two or a they two. But maybe this can just make it slightly more likely that we will be using the pronouns vidva and onadva over the other ones when we want to make sure who it is we're talking about, or who it is that is doing the verb. And then we said that this is basically the formula how to conjugate verbs in Slovenian. We just have to know that every infinitive consists of a ending, of a t, and everything that comes before that ending, which is called a stem, and that we then replace the t with the appropriate ending. And the endings are m, sh, nothing, va, ta, ta, mo, te, jo. However, we said that this is how we do regular verbs. So, having a look at that one more time, we have the stem plus t, and this is our formula. M, sh, nothing, va, ta, ta, mo, te, and jo. Now, regular versus irregular verbs. Regular means predictable and fits the pattern, and irregular means something unusual happens or something unpredictable happens that we just have to learn by heart. And Slovenian has both regular and irregular verbs, but like we said last time, not in quite the same way as, say, Italian or French, where the verbs can go completely crazy. Verbs in Slovenian never go completely crazy, and we'll have a look at that right away. So, Slovenian verbs never go completely crazy, only the stem can change, and the endings stay the same. So the endings are kind of written in stone, they never change, it's just the stem that can do its own irregular, weird thing. So, in kind of like technical terms, like we'll have a look at what this means in practice in a second, but basically regular verbs, the infinitive stem is the same as the present tense stem, and with irregular verbs, the infinitive stem is not the same as the present tense stem. So the stem can go crazy, but after that it's predictable. And if this kind of seems confusing, you'll see right away what we mean by that. So what we mean by that is this is the infinitive stem. The stem means the part that comes before the ending, and the infinitive, because this is the infinitive, so it's dela. Now with regular verbs, the infinitive stem, we said, is the same as the present tense stem. And so this is where the present tense stem kind of is. So all of these are always the same. So with in the case of delati, dela stays the same. So it's dela, dela, delam, delash, dela, delava, delata, delata, delamo, delate, delayo. Now with irregular verbs, the dela can change completely, but once it changes, it's the same throughout all of those 9 forms, which is why we use the same color orange for that. And the endings are the same. So we have a stem plus t, and here we have p plus t, pt. Now pt is to drink, and to drink is an irregular verb. Now, if pt were regular, then we would conjugate it by going pim, pish, pi, piva, pita, pita, pimo, pite, pio. But it is not regular, and we cannot know what change happens. We just kind of have to learn it by heart. And so the p, the infinitive stem, changes to a pie, pie. So it's a big difference. But once we know it's pie, it's piem, piesh, pie, pieva, pieta, pieta, piemo, piete, piejo. And that that's the case with all Slovenian verbs. That's why we said that the endings, the mush, nothing, va, ta, ta, mo, teo, it's kind of like a solid 80%, if not more, of everything there is to say on present tense verb conjugation in Slovenian. And so there's no way to know if a verb is irregular. However, in my format, in my notes, in my materials, I always mark them. So if in the third if in the bottom line where we explain the grammar in my examples, where the grammar is kind of transparent, if you just have a word that ends in t and there is nothing in the brackets, it's regular. So delati, to work, govoriti, to speak, razumeti, to understand, are all examples of regular verbs because there is nothing in the brackets, whereas irregular verbs are piti, jesti, and spati. So it's pijem and jem and spim. So we can see that the difference between a regular and the change that a verb undergoes can be very slight, just like one vowel. If you have a look at spati, to sleep, it's spati, which should make the I form spam, spam, but it's actually spim. So the only difference that happens there is the SPA changes to an SPI. And so it's just an A to an I, everything else stays the same. So the change can be as slight as that in Slovenian, or it can be as big as P changing to pije, which is pretty big, or it can be even bigger than that. The verb can just change completely, right? But once it has changed, once we do know the present tense stem, then we can just conjugate it in the usual predictable manner. So, piti. Once we know it's pie, it's piem, piesh, pie, pieva, pieta, pieta, piemo, piete, piejo. And that's pretty much all there is to say about, or most of what there is to say about conjugating irregular verbs in Slovenian. So for once, something is simpler in Slovenian than at least in other European languages. Verb conjugation itself is more straightforward. You just have to know the I form, and after that you're all set to conjugate it, to put it through all of the remaining 8 forms. So, thank you for watching. I hope these lessons are useful. I hope you're progressing on your Slovenian journey. And yeah, good luck studying, and see you in the next one. Take care.